So again, today we're having a conversation with Capital Area Food Bank on food budgeting with Eliza Ottenheimer from Capital Area Food Bank. I'm going to go and read our disclaimers before we get started. The WildTech DC Senior iPad program, its owners and presenters offer technical assistance, virtual health, well-being information designed for educational purposes only. You should not rely on the information in any applications or topics made by WildTech, including but not limited to mobile device applications and any social media pages maintained by WildTech, its owners or presenters as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or legal advice. Thank you so much for letting me read the disclaimer. And again, today we have Eliza from Capital Area Food Bank, who will be talking about food budgeting. So if you could give an introduction of yourself and what you'll be covering today, we would appreciate it. And thank you so much for coming on. I really look forward to your session today.
Yes, of course. And can I share my screen now?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yep. And thank you all for raising your hands. You all can lower your hands. Thank you so much.
Some presentation view. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, you're good to go. And by the way, folks right now are just they're muted right now. So again, we're all able to hear. And just again, if you would like to respond or ask a question, raise your hand in Zoom.
Perfect. Wonderful. So my name is Eliza Ottenheimer. I am the Nutrition Education Specialist at the Capital Area Food Bank, and I'm very excited to be here with you all today to talk a little more about eating well on a budget. And I will go to my, I thought I had an agenda in there. So what we'll be covering today is talking about what is healthy eating, how we can healthy eat on a budget, what we can do both in the grocery store and when we're at home, some tips and tricks. And of course, I love to hear from you guys as well. And then at the very end, we'll talk about a little bit more about the Capital Area Food Bank and the resources that we offer. So let's get started. As I said, I like to make this as interactive as possible, so it's not just me talking the whole time. So the first question I have for you all is, what do you think of when you think of food budgeting?
Yep, please raise your hand if you would like to answer. Anne and then Geraldine, thank you. Hey, Anne, how are you?
I'm doing well. Alex, hi, Eliza. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. My thing budgeting is buying things when they're on sale, meat, bulk stuff, and utilizing the canned foods in certain dishes. I prefer fresh vegetables, and now that the other program will begin, I'll be able to freeze a lot of the fresh vegetables that I get during the summer.
Perfect.
So,
thank you. Yeah.
And I kind of budget out stuff that's on sale, and kind of make a menu. And you utilize the things that you have on hand for the next month.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anne. You touched on a lot of things we'll be talking about this rest of the presentation. So thank you for those great ideas.
No, you're welcome, dear. And good seeing you again.
Thank you, Anne. Geraldine, what do you think of when you think of food budgeting?
Well, when I think of food budgeting, I think of how much money I have to spend on food and what food items I can buy with that budget. That's what I think of.
Yeah, that's a really great answer to what food budgeting is. And now we see more and more the prices of groceries are going up. So it's getting more and more important to make sure that we are thinking about our food budgeting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Geraldine, so much. Next up, just as many hands as you would like, Eliza, is Gracie. Okay. What do you think of food budgeting?
I think of eating the best healthy meals that I can, but yet and still staying within my food budget.
That is perfect, Gracie. That's what I'm here to help talk about as well. So you read my mind. And then we'll just do one more with Thelma and then we'll move on. Thank you all for your answers.
Thank you so much, Gracie.
You're
Thelma,
welcome.
what do you think of food budgeting?
When I think of food budget, I'm thinking of buying no more than what I can buy, buying what I can, that I need. And because I'm not, then I don't buy what I want. I buy what I need.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
don't like buying in bulk because I done bought a whole lot of what I don't want. They'd be throwing away a whole lot I didn't need. So, so I'd rather get it once a week or every 2 weeks, along with my income and all.
Yeah, that's perfect. Again, some things we're going to touch on later. So you guys are really going to be able to help contribute to this conversation. Thanks to the 4 of you who shared what you think of when you think of food budgeting. I
Thank
knew
you
I
so
had an
much, Thelma.
agenda in there. So this is the agenda we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about what is eating nutrient-rich foods. We're going to talk about reading the nutrition label. We're going to discuss meal planning, shopping tips, reducing food waste. Oh, and then we're not going to cook today. Unfortunately, I did not update that, but hopefully you guys will cook for a yummy dinner tonight. So, incorporating nutrient foods into every day. Does anyone want to tell us what the 5 food groups are? I'll take the first hand up. Any takers?
What are the 5 food groups? We had a guest on that talked a lot about nutrition and food. So, and I actually talked about in our lunch clubs as well. We went over each of these groups together. So, in the past. Okay, Miss Rosemary, what are the 5 food groups?
I think, well, I know for sure dairy,
Mm-hmm.
fruits and veggies.
Fruits and veggies, yep.
Is it bread? No, starch. No.
Grains, you're so close.
Grains. Okay, then meat, or is it protein?
It's protein, yep. So those are our 5 food groups. Was everyone else going to say that?
Thank you so much, Miss Rosemary.
Well, thank you.
So it sounds like you guys have seen or talked about these 5 food groups before. So this might be a familiar image to you, but this is what the government recommends for proportions of foods that we eat in a typical setting or in our meal. So do you guys, how about, would you raise your hand if you think your meal looks like this?
We have covered Start Simple with My Plate a lot in the past, Eliza.
Oh, okay.
So this looks very familiar, which is
Good.
great.
Yay. And I'm seeing a lot of raised hands that their meals look like this. Thank you to all that have raised their hands saying that a lot of their meals look like this. I know I try, but it doesn't always look like this. Wonderful. So thank you all for sharing that you typically try to have your plate look like this. So we're gonna, since you guys have covered this in the past, we will kind of go briefly through My Plate just as a reminder and talking about a few tips and tricks for each food group, and then we'll be able to move on since it seems like you guys have a lot of experience with this. So the first food group we're going to be talking about is our fruits and some tips and tricks for getting fruits into our diets. So making sure to include fruit as breakfast, putting it on oatmeals, putting it on cereals, all that good stuff, putting in your pancake mix, having fruit as snacks, something that's easy to grab and go. Remembering, and then we talked about it right at the beginning too, someone brought up that you can use canned goods too. So canned fruits that are canned in either juice, 100% juice, or in water. Those are delicious and just as nutrient dense as fresh fruits. So keeping fruits on your counter as a nice grab and go snack. So that is a little bit about fruits. Ooh. And a little bit about vegetables too, making sure about half our plate is fruits and vegetables, which is always so good and tasty. And a lot of times when we think of vegetables, we think of salads, but there's so many other ways that we can get vegetables into our diet. So putting them in soups and stews and pastas, and making sure we're eating the rainbow as well. So we say eating the rainbow because each different color of a fruit and vegetable has different vitamins and minerals in it. And that's really why we don't want to be eating, as healthy as it is to eat carrots every single day, you're getting a lot of vitamin A in your system, but we still need all those other vitamins and minerals. And that's why we really tell people to eat the rainbow. And one of my favorite meal prepping tips is making a bunch of vegetables, either roasting them or prepping them, cutting them up, and then storing them in the fridge for later. And again, trying new vegetables and new fruits too can always be fun, to just sample something you've never had before, it looks interesting, and seeing if you like it. And then we'll talk again, and just going through these as quick as possible, since it seems like you guys know and have learned a lot. 100% whole grains. So making sure we are putting 100% whole grains in our diet. That's because they're high in vitamin B and fiber. And we really need fiber to help with our regularity in our bowels. So some whole grains we have our oats, we have our barleys, we have those whole grain pastas and breads, even popcorn, not the microwavable kind, unfortunately, but the stovetop kind. That's an 100% whole grain. So that is a fun snack to make. And thinking about that too, when we get into the reading of the labels, we want to be thinking about our 100% whole grains, because we'll discuss that again later on. Our proteins, so making sure we're choosing a wide variety of proteins. So not just meat proteins, but beans have proteins, and nuts have proteins, and peas, and all of those can help contribute to a well-rounded diet. It is recommended by the dietary guidelines to have fish twice a week. And so that can be on a salad, made in patties, and a sandwich, however you choose to eat it. And then some breakfast proteins to remember is you can have yogurt I see somebody's, I'm a little late on the chat, sorry. Somebody makes popcorn. It's so good like that. So trying Greek yogurt or low sodium cottage cheese as a nice way in the morning to get protein beyond just eggs and bacon and sausage and all those things we typically think about. And then one of the most important things, which is not technically one of the 5 food groups, is water. So a lot of us tend to not drink as much water as we should in a day. So that's why I really want to highlight it, especially as you get older. You need more water. So making sure that we are always hydrated, always carrying around a bottle of water everywhere you sit down, bringing a glass with you. Mine are even reusable tomato sauce jars. So you can make anything into a glass to drink water. And if you tend to find water being bland, or you're not really a big fan of water, try adding in squeezes of lemon juice and lime juice. Sometimes I'll even put frozen berries in my juice to act like ice cubes, but they add a nice flavor as well. And then also we have unsweetened seltzers, which can help add some flavor and a little bubble if you like that carbonation. So that was our quick overview of my plate and all the 5 food groups, and making sure that you guys get enough of each one in your diet. So another question, raise your hand if you read the nutrition facts label. Oh my good, look at you guys. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I do this presentation often, and sometimes we get a lot of hands and sometimes we don't. I get an always in the, yeah, woohoo. You guys are health conscious. I'm happy to hear that. This is amazing.
Yeah, we've had in the past we have quite a few sessions. Food is really important in our daily lives. So we've had quite one of the sessions we had in the past was actually reading nutrition labels and kind of understanding what each of the terms mean and how to read it. So this is just a great review, but also for our newer seniors. But it's always good to get a review. So this is really important and easy way to help with nutrition and budgeting. So.
Yeah.
I love all the hands. We had a lot of engagement for this, so I'm really happy to see that.
Yes, me too. Oh, Rosemary, I know. Sometimes the Oreos you just hide away. Yep. So especially, yeah, when we're reading the nutrition facts, it's typically on those packaged items. Food is medicine. That is true. So when we are, and since this is a review to some of you and might be new to others, when we're looking at a nutrition facts label, this is kind of the order of what we want to be looking at. So the first thing we want to look at is our serving size, because the serving size can be a little deceiving sometimes. So the serving size is what everything below it is talks about. So for this item here, there is 8 servings per container, and the serving size is 2/3 of a cup. So everything below that thick black line is only for 2/3 of a cup of this item. A lot of times when we think about our canned tomato soups or other canned soups, most of us would eat the whole can because it seems like one serving. But if you actually read the label, a lot of those have multiple servings in them. The next thing we want to look at is the amount of calories. This is mainly if you are needing to watch your calories. And then the next group in red, that is what we really want to limit. And luckily for us, they stick them all together. So these are the things we want to look out for. So our total fats and all of our fats, our cholesterol, and our sodium. And then number 4 in purple on the screen is what we want to make sure we're getting enough of. And so we want to look at that fiber and make sure that it is a good amount of fiber. And then again, you see how they're divided again under that thick black line is all the vitamins and minerals that are in the item. And we want to make sure that we're getting those vitamins and minerals as well. So I got some practice for you guys. How many servings are in this product? We got
That's a great question. I actually calculated before you asked it in my head because that's what you typically do, which is cool. So okay, Miss Deborah Edge, how many servings are in the product in total?
Oh,
Can you hear
There
me?
you go, Miss Deborah. Yes, Miss Deborah.
Yes.
What?
I believe it's saying 8 servings per container.
you believe correct. Nice job. Yes, there is 8 servings in this container. And then we have another question. How many calories are in the package?
Thank you, Ms. Deborah. Appreciate that. I see we have 4 hands up if you all wanted to answer that too. How many calories are in the package? Ms. Thelma, what is your answer?
232 per serving.
Correct. So that's per serving, which I'm glad you highlighted. So in this package, if you were to eat the whole package, it would be 230 times 8, which I just pulled up on my calculator because I forgot to take notes of it, and it is 1,840. So then the next question is how much sodium is in the package?
How much sodium? Miss Gracie, how much sodium is in the
Okay.
packet?
800 mils. 800 milligram. What did you say? No, no. No,
Sodium.
I'm sorry. It's more than that. 800 plus 6.
So it's a little more than that.
Now I need a calculator. It's 8 times
It's
160 milligrams. I need
that's
the
yeah,
total
that's
for it.
okay. If you say that, you're fine,
Mhm.
Gracie.
Yep.
I see 1220 in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, someone did the math for you. Thank you. Yeah, so you're on the right track. So is that 160 milligrams times the 8 servings?
Hmm.
And then, do you guys think this product is a good source of calcium? So you see that bottom red square, the calcium says 260 milligrams. Do we think that is a good source of calcium?
I really like that question, Eliza. uh, let's see. Ms. Doris, again, just trying to hear from as many voices as we can. I appreciate all of your participation. Ms. Doris, is this a product of a food source of calcium or no?
I say no.
Okay, thank you for the answer. So what we typically, and this I put you guys on the spot without telling you what to look for. So when we say if it's a good source, it's either high or low, we take 20% or higher, and that's a high source. So with something like calcium, that's a good source of calcium to have 20%. Because remember, this isn't necessarily a full meal. This might be a component of your meal. This could be, I don't actually know what this label is for. Trying to think of what it could be. Something, something that you would have 2/3 of a cup of, and then you'd pair it with something else. So with a 20% or higher, we say that is a high thing. So when you're looking at sodium, because it's 20% or lower, it would not be a high sodium item, so we wouldn't have to worry too much about the amount of sodium if we were eating the serving size. And then on the flip side, if we say something is low, that's usually when we have around 5% or less.
That's a really great point, Eliza. Like I'm just imagining 20%. So it's 20% of the daily value. There are 8 servings. So you technically need 5 if you just want the calcium from that one thing. So, that's good. That's a really great number. I never thought of it like that. So I
Yeah,
hope that helps out everyone. That's
yeah.
that's a good question.
I hope so too. Yeah, so that daily value on the right, and just those percentages, it helps us quickly, because most of us, don't know exactly how many milligrams of calcium we need in a day and exactly how much iron we need in a day. So just looking at those daily values, and I will put a caveat that those daily values are based off the average person who's eating 2,000 calories. And of course, none of us are the average person, so we all have, intake a little more, intake a little less, depending on our activity and our age and our weight and height and all those things. So just something to think about. But that's a really great visual of when you're looking at something to be able to look quickly at that daily value. Then we move on to our added sugars. So anyone want to talk about the difference between added sugars and natural sugars?
Thank you, Gracie. And then Brenda, if you like Liza, Gracie, what do you think is the difference?
The added sugars, when you put sweetness in it. Natural sugars is what's in it from, like you grow it, or the natural comes from just nature. Added is you add extra fruit juices, you refine sugar, artificial sweeteners, whatever.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you.
And I eat a lot of fruit because they have natural sweeteners, and I'm a diabetic, so I really stick with a lot of, fruits and stuff that don't have any added sugars in them.
Thank you so much, Gracie, for sharing.
Mhm.
Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
We have another. Did you want to hear another response to your question, Eliza?
Sure, yeah, we had one more hand and then we'll move on.
Okay. Miss Winston, can you unmute, please? And share your thoughts on the difference between natural and added sugars. You got to hit unmute in the middle.
Uh-oh, she might be frozen.
Yeah.
We
Miss,
can move on and hopefully she'll
yeah,
catch up with
yeah.
us.
What do you think, Miss Doris?
I wanted to know is the difference between the cane sugar and the regular sugar. Which one is better for you?
That is a question up for debate in the nutrition world. I think all sugars that are added into something are not inherently the best for us. So it doesn't matter if it's cane or refined sugars. Different people you ask will have different answers to that, but that is there's no direct answer right now. And that's the funny thing about the nutrition world is we're always experimenting and trying to find different ways. And we don't always have the, this one is exactly better than this one, because doing trials on humans eating different foods is really challenging. As you can imagine, trying to think through everything you ate in a day or following something for a research study, people either, inflate their things. I know if somebody was asking me what I was eating every day, especially, me and my job, I'd say, I would never touch an Oreo, where in reality, I might be eating some other sweets in there. So it can be really challenging to sometimes find the deeper studies, especially in something so small like cane sugar versus refined sugar. So thank you for that. And then we're going to keep moving on to added sugars.
Thank you all for your responses today
Yes.
so far.
I know. I love a talkative group. It makes my job a lot easier. So yeah, as we talked about, added sugars are sugars that are not naturally found in the product. And some foods contain natural sugars. So as we were saying, fruits contain natural sugars. Some vegetables contain natural sugars. A lot of our dairy products contain natural sugars. And so those sugars that are natural, they are something that's found in the product, and our bodies are able to digest them better. It's usually at a lower rate as well, where those added sugars are things that are brought in, like our cakes and our cookies and our sodas, which we'll talk about in a second. If there's any soda drinkers on here, got some good visuals for you. But when you're looking at the nutrition facts label and you're looking for your sugars, it is now mandatory that every single nutrition facts label has a total sugar. So that is both our added sugars and our natural sugars. And then below that is our added sugars. So in this product that I have here, you see there's 8 grams of added sugars, and that and then there must be 8 grams of natural sugars, because the total sugar has to be 16. So that's a good way to look at it too. You see the total sugars, and then if you subtract the added sugars, you'll get what the natural sugars are. We're seeing a lot in the chat. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up with everything and move us along. Okay, so here is a bottle of Mountain Dew. How much sugar is in this bottle? And make sure you look at my little note there in the asterisks.
I was about to say, you said bottle. That's very, telling of the question.
Any takers? Let's see if somebody. I know I should have told you guys you needed your calculators today.
Yeah,
Bring your calculators to class. I see in the chat there is an answer, 31 grams. That would be per serving. So if we took those 31 grams and we multiplied it by our servings per container, our 2.5, we would get about, oh, my math is getting 77.5.
You're right. I just did it myself.
Perfect. I know. I'm always like, could be me too. So in this bottle of Mountain Dew, we are getting 77.5 grams of added sugars. And what does 77.5 grams of added sugars look like? It is 19.5. You can see my 0.5 on the bottom right. Teaspoons. That is a
Wow.
lot of sugar. So think about when you have your morning coffees, if you are a coffee drinker, your morning teas, and how much sugar you put in there. And then think about putting 19.5 teaspoons in that in order to drink it. So this is just one example of how much sugar is in a lot of our items. For context, if you are a woman, the USDA recommends you have less than 25 grams of added sugar a day. And if you're a man, you have less than 32 grams of added sugar in a day. So this is well over both of those amounts. And unfortunately, sugars are not the only, sodas are not the only thing that have these sugars. We know our desserts have sugar. We know that our sodas have sugar, but a lot of things we don't realize has sugar in it. So a lot of those oatmeals that are pre-packaged, those have sugar in them unless they, are just the oats. So those maple brown sugar ones that are so good, those have a nice amount of added sugar. A lot of our granola bars have added sugar. Our tomato sauces have added sugar. Breads have added sugar. So, and we'll talk about this when we talk about reading the label too, but just making sure that you're looking out for these things.
Wow, thank you. Especially the 32 grams and 25 grams. That's very interesting. Really quick, if you go back to the label, I noticed that under the sugars, they actually don't have the percentage right next to it either. And I'm assuming this is an older bottle of soda, but I just saw, wow, that's great. They put all the numbers for the other ones, but not for
They
sugar.
didn't. Yeah, this is a slide is a little bit older, so I probably should try and see if I can get an updated one and even see if what the soda has, if it has a percentage there or not. But that's a
Oh.
really great point.
Oh, no, it's good to show that back in the day, that they didn't, according to this label, that they didn't have that, which is,
Right.
it would be nice to be more transparent. So I just saw that and thought it was
Yeah, they don't
interesting.
want you to know, that's for sure. I saw someone in the chat doesn't drink lots of soda. I'm happy to hear that. So when you're looking at a nutrition facts label, we talked about what the percentage and how to look for that. And then underneath all that is the ingredient list. And the ingredient list is shown by each product by weight. So whatever there is the most of in that package will be first, and then whatever is the least of will be last. So let's practice. What ingredient does this item have the most of?
And please raise your hand. What ingredient on that list does this item have the most of? Miss Hill, what is your answer? Oh, you got to hit unmute in the middle again. There you go.
Sugar.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you, Miss Hill.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And then what ingredient does this item have the least of?
Denise, would you like to answer that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Iron.
it iron?
So it would be the last item you
Oh,
see.
you talking about down at the bottom.
Yep.
Oh, the sodium, artificial flavor, sodium,
Yep. So it would be that
sodium,
sodium
carbonate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So that baking soda, that is the last ingredient we have. So that's how you know when you look at something and you see sugar as the first ingredient, you can assume probably that there's a lot of sugar in this item. Also, something to look out for is how much of the ingredients you understand. And I know it's hard. They put a lot of bad stuff in there or stuff we don't fully understand what it is. But I say, if you're comparing two items in the grocery store, if one of the labels, you know what everything is, it says whole wheat, oil, salt, I'm thinking crackers or something, you know, and then a seed like a flax seed or something, and you understand what all those ingredients are, that is a better item to choose than something where there's a lot of words that you have no idea what they mean, because then it's a little harder to know what you're putting into your body. So we are going to move on to meal planning. So I know at the very beginning, someone did mention they meal plan. Would you raise your hand if you meal plan?
So let's get a show of hands. If you plan your meals out for the week, day, month, whatever, please raise your hand in Zoom. Wow, 7, that was really fast.
I know, I'm impressed. Everyone's speedy today.
Do you meal plan? Raise your hand. Just reached 10. Great. That's a lot of you all. Yep, 11. Wow, 12.
So, and keep if you didn't get to raise your hand in time and you do, feel free to keep raising it. I'm going to move on. So we have some quick tips for meal planning. Plan meals for 1 or 2 weeks at a time. It makes it easier when you're going to the grocery store. The big thing is making sure to see what you already have in your refrigerator, your freezer, and your pantry. So in the bottom of your freezer, do you have something you can use that you don't need to go to the store to buy? In the back of your pantry, is there something that, you know, has been sitting there for a while that you just keep forgetting to incorporate into a meal? So making sure you're using what is at your house before you go out and buy more food. Looking at grocery store sales and plan meals around those foods. So you can look at sales either online, you can look, there's now apps that you can get these different sales at. You can use newspapers, anything that works for you is fine. Oh, and then we talked about that too. So making sure you're getting coupons, signing up for all the different, what are they called? Grocery store rewards points, because that's a great way to also save money when grocery store. The Flip app. Okay. Every time I do this, I learn of a very cool new thing that helps people. Yvonne, Miss Smith, do you mind coming off mute and talking about the Flip app?
Yeah, it's up to you if you'd like to share, Ms. Smith. I've heard of it too. There are a lot of couponing apps out there. So
The Flip app is not a coupon app. What it is, it's an app where you put your zip code in and it gives you all the sale papers for your area. So for me, I get Giant, Safeway, Wegmans, a whole 9 yards. You can see trends in those apps because sometimes when chicken is on sale, like I have a price point for different things. For breasts, it's $1.79 a pound. For thighs and legs, it's like 89 or 99 cents. So I can see when I see what's the name of the store? Lidl. We have a good price on chicken. I'll get that and put in my freezer. I try not to eat manufactured foods because of all the chemicals that's there. There's another app that I found out from this class is something called Super Cook. And Super Cook is when you put in the item you have in your pantry and recipes are generated. And I'm landing my plane unless you have anything else you want me to answer.
Oh. Thank you
That
for
was-
mentioning that Super Cook app. I found that app and found it quite useful to find different recipes. Thank you so
And
much for sharing.
it only assumes that you have salt and pepper.
It sure does.
But
Wonderful.
the terrific place to get seasonings is Aldi. They have them like for like, or even the Dollar Tree. They're like $1.25 except for saffron. And you only need about 15 different seasonings for your pantry.
And then you're good to go. Thank you so much for sharing. This is what I mean. Every time I do this, I learn a new app or a new something that somebody's able to teach me. So this is why I love when it's as interactive as possible. Let's move on. So this is a sample of a meal planning. So when planning meals, things to think about is writing out the days of the week and then writing out breakfast, lunch, dinner, and don't forget the snacks, because that's where we find people tend to go towards a more unhealthy thing. You know, you're out and about and you get hungry and you tend to grab something that's a little more like a chip or something really easy that'll satisfy that craving right away. So when meal planning, really making sure that you're capturing every single meal of the day, including snacks. And so this is just an example. And of course, yours does not need to go into this much detail. And if you want to, you can. That's the best thing about meal planning. You can do however much you want. So this one talks about what exactly they need for each meal. And then it talks about where they can eat the leftovers. So you see on day one dinner, they had this honey lemon chicken. And then on day two lunch, they ate the leftovers. So that's something to think about too, to making sure our leftovers never go to waste. So once you have everything planned, that's when you can see too, what do I already have and what needs to be added to my list to go to the grocery store. So I'm going to have you guys think in your head for a second of a few things that you already have in your fridge, your freezer, your pantry, or something that you typically find when you dig deep into those places. And then also think kind of what meals could you make with what you have? And if you're missing any ingredients, that's what you would hypothetically add to your shopping list. So I'm going to give you guys about a minute or two to really think through this so we can put ourselves in the place of somebody who's going to be meal planning for the week. And then we'll have a few people share quickly.
Yeah, this is a great, like a weekly reminder for yourself, because usually meal plans, they're not 100%. You may, skew a little bit. So it's always good to regroup and see what you have. So that way you can, make the decision that you want in the best information possible. Yeah. So are you just asking the group what are you asking them to share specifically?
Yeah,
I think that would help out.
Yeah, so sorry for not being clear. So yeah, thinking through what you have, and then if you want to share what you had in your fridge or freezer that inspired the meal, and then what ingredients were missing that you would need to go shopping for.
Thank you.
It looks like we have two people who are
Yeah.
ready.
You want to get started?
Yeah, so we'll just do these two so that we can make sure we make it through the rest of the presentation.
Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Ms. Duckett, what do you have in your pantry or freezer or fridge? What meals could you make with it, and what are you missing?
Okay. Let me start with what I'm missing. I usually use a lot of peppers, onions, celery. Those three items I'm constantly purchasing for whatever I'm going to prepare, whether it's a vegetable or whether it's like for instance, when I make salmon, a casserole or something like that, that's where I would need my onions, celery, and peppers. If I'm going to do a rice dish, sometimes I'm missing walnuts because I saute my vegetables and mix it with my rice. It's that kind of thing that I have all the time, but most of the time I'm constantly have to use celery, peppers, and onions. And generally, I try to stick with the red because it's the antioxidants that's in them. So I try to stick with them as much as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much, Ms. Duckett. Appreciate that. And then we have Ms. Smith before we move on. Hey, Yvonne, what do you have? What can you make it with? And are you missing any ingredients?
I pretty much don't have anything because I do meal prep all the time. And for example, I make 3 omelets at a time. And so I have eggs, spinach, cheese, and mushrooms that are there. And so I can make 3 omelets that are frozen and put in there. I can take out because it makes a complete meal. I usually don't eat till 11 o'clock unless I'm going to the doctor or something and I have something in the morning. And then a salad. I grow my own romaine lettuce in a hydroponic garden on the living room table. So I have romaine lettuce. I have some little tomatoes. I could use more because I'm growing the little grape tomatoes. And then the little pouches, like Lido has 4 for $3 of tuna. I can put that in the salad. And then I already eat 2 meals a day. But if I also have meal prep, I would have something where I would have a protein. I try to use a bowl like millet or farro or couscous, one of the grains as a base, or either a salad as a base. And then I have like a protein like chicken or salmon. I could use this black rice too as a grain too. But that's what I do, and have lots of put green vegetables in it, maybe some leftover broccoli and things like that. The Costco has great sales on frozen broccoli. You can get 4-pack, 1-pound pack for something like $8 and some cents. And for a single person like me, that's more than enough for a month.
Yeah, well, you are helping lead right into the next section too with the bulk buying.
Oh, and the snack could be, I can make, that's the only manufactured food I have is once in a while, I will make a pound cake or a what do you call it? A peach cobbler. I just made yesterday, 2, but I break them down into little serving sizes so I don't be tempted to have them. And I buy ice cream once a year in February because it's cold. And that way I can have that on there. So a pound cake and a peach cobbler will last me an entire year.
Wow, that's very impressive. Yes, and of course, everyone gets treats in moderation. So we are going to move on just so we can get through everything. Thank you guys for sharing. And I hope just hearing what other people around you are making can help inspire you as well. So I love just being able to talk about food and get ideas from other people of what different things that you can make. So we'll go into our shopping tips. So when we're shopping, if we just made those lists in our mind kind of what we needed from the grocery store, Making sure we write that down. You can even write it down by aisle or area. So you can write dairy and then you can put all your dairy items. You can write produce and have all your produce items to make your shop around the grocery store a little easier. That's what I tend to do. I make a whole list and then right before I go, I put it into the order of what's in each section. So I have my canned goods, the dairies, the eggs, and whatnot. Never shop hungry. I'm sure we've all done this in the past and bought a few too many things. I know that happens to me anytime I shop hungry. So making sure we're eating before we're going shopping. We talked about shopping what is on sale. We talked about different apps and whatnot you can use to know what's on sale. But sometimes you show up at the grocery store and there's a sale you didn't know about. So thinking about if you can swap items out that are on your list for the sale item. Buying generic or store brand items, those are typically cheaper than other brands, and most of the time they use the same exact recipe or item. Every once in a while it tastes a little different, but I'd say for the majority of the time they're pretty swappable and the generic store brand is cheaper. When it comes to shopping for fruits and vegetables, we want to buy on sale. We want to buy in season. When they're in season, they are typically less expensive because we don't need to ship them to the DC area from other countries, from other parts of the country itself. We can get them more localized to be in your grocery store. They're not coming off on a boat in 5 trucks. They're coming from a more local, closer area. Buying frozen fruits and vegetables. Those are wonderful for you. They're cheaper typically than fresh fruits and vegetables, and they last a lot longer. And then canned fruits and vegetables, just watching out for sodiums and sugars. So we are also going to talk about saving money on prepared foods quickly. So if you're going out to a meal, ordering a kid's meal for yourself. Sometimes they don't let you anymore, which is kind of sad, but kids' meals are typically a little bit smaller and they're also a lot cheaper. Buying a prepared main dish and then prepping the rest at home. So if you have a rotisserie chicken at the store, you purchase that and then you make the potatoes and the green beans at home. You're cutting out a lot of time when it comes to making that protein, but then you're still getting those great vegetables that are healthier since they're made at home. And then at restaurants, if you're not going to eat the whole thing, making sure to divide the meal in half and take the rest home. So we are going to talk about unit price versus retail price. So this is what you see at the grocery store. These are 2 yogurts. We have our bigger yogurt on the top, that's 32 ounces. What we typically, our eyes go to is that is $1.62. And then on the bottom, we have our smaller single serving yogurt. And what our eyes go to is the 72 cents. What we really want to be looking at is our unit price. So that says how much it is per ounce. So if you are looking at that bottom one and it is 72 cents for 6 ounces, that would make it 12 cents per ounce. If you go up to the bigger one, you see that it is $1.62, but since it's 32 ounces, you're actually getting a better price on the yogurt because it is only 5 cents per ounce. So if you typically would eat 32 ounces of yogurt, it makes sense to get the bigger ones. And I always say, if people like to eat it out of smaller containers, you can take it home and immediately put it into smaller Tupperwares so it's easier to grab and go, or just a smaller already portioned out size, but you're still saving money. You can also use these unit prices when it comes to looking at the generic brand versus the store brand. And toilet paper and other products like that have this as well. So it's not just on the food items.
That's a really great note, especially you're basically getting twice four times for the size, but it's only 2 times more in in that way. So it is a great deal. That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. And so here's another example too. Of course, these images I just made bigger and smaller, but you have your bigger size of popcorn and then your smaller size as well. And so if you are buying that smaller size, you are paying $1.39 for a small bag of popcorn, when you could be getting 4 servings of that for only $4. So something to definitely keep an eye out as you are in the grocery store. My last section is 2:30 a hard cutoff.
No, Eliza, you're good to go.
Okay.
Thank you so much so far.
Yeah, so this is my last section, I promise. So saving money by reducing food waste. So food waste is money waste. You are spending your money to purchase these foods. You don't want them to go bad, or else you're just throwing away your money. So making sure when we're purchasing things, we're using them, we're storing them properly and whatnot. So let's move. Oh. While you're grocery shopping, the first way to avoid food waste is making that list we talked about and shopping and sticking to that list. Because if you, and I'm sure we've all done it every once in a while, you're like, ooh, that looks good. And you keep adding other things. If you're not going to eat it, it's going to go bad. And then it will be food waste. Again, only buying foods you will use and eat. Storing your food properly. So refrigerator should be at 40 degrees and your freezer should be at 0 degrees. If they're warmer than this, your food might spoil sooner. So definitely check out your fridge and freezer and make sure that they're at those temperatures. If your fridge and freezer doesn't tell you automatically, you can get a small little thermometer, a fridge thermometer that you can put in there and be able to look at that. Again, somebody mentioned this really at the beginning. They talking about being careful when buying foods in bulk. So if you live with a lot of people and your food will be eaten, or you have a freezer that you can freeze things in, buying in bulk is great. But there's some things that buying in bulk, if a lot of it is going to go bad, does not make sense to do. And then, of course, buying frozen fruits and vegetables, they can last in your freezer for a very long time. And they also are more typically cheaper as well. Again, my favorite part of my kitchen is my freezer. I love freezing things. So if you have fruits or vegetables that are about to go bad, freeze them. I say when you're thinking about what can you freeze, think about when you're walking through the freezer aisle and what you see on the shelves. So you don't usually see frozen romaine lettuce. That might not be good frozen because of how much water is in those leaves. So I wouldn't recommend freezing that. But you see frozen spinach, frozen kale. So just thinking kind of what do you see in the freezer aisle? And oh, okay, if I've seen that in the store, it should freeze well. Freezing in a Ziploc bag in airtight containers. And then using it up as you need it. Again, leftovers that won't be eaten for a few days, freeze them, put them in portion-sized containers, and put those in the freezers. And then also being creative. So a lot of times we can get really set in our ways of what foods we're eating. But if you have a little something left over, think creatively on how you can use that to make sure your leftovers are going a long way. So some great ways to use leftover grains and veggies is to have them go in salads and grain bowls, stir fry fried rice. And then the last thing is storing our produce properly. So making sure that we are storing different produces properly. Asparagus can be stored like a flower bouquet in your fridge. Same with your herbs. Some of those stemmy things, if you put them in a glass of water and you stick them right in, they'll last for a lot longer because they're still getting that water they need when they would usually wilt. And then another good way to freeze is to pickle. So I don't know if any of you guys pickle at home, but it is delicious to add on to different food items, and it's very easy to make. So again, anything that you think is going bad, pickle it and it'll be just as delicious. And then the last part of this section is reducing food waste by learning what these dates mean. So we see on our food the sell by, use by, and best if used by date. That does not mean the food has gone bad. So that sell by date means that the store can no longer sell the item. But it does not mean you can no longer eat it. The use by is the last date recommended for use of product for highest quality and freshness as determined by the manufacturer. Again, that does not mean that it is no longer good and you can't eat it. Best if used by means recommended for best flavor or quality. Again, doesn't mean you can no longer eat it. So we have this chart here, and I can get this over to you guys if you are interested. But it kind of goes through each category and how long past that label is it good. So let's look at that first one. It's canned goods with high acidity. So that would be something like your canned tomatoes. Those can be consumed for 12 to 18 months after the date on the can. But then you want to make sure you're seeing the physical condition of the can. So if the can is dented, if it's rusting, if there's a hole in it, if it's missing a label, if it feels like it's going to explode, we will not eat that. But if the date says it expired a year ago, we are still able to consume it. And this is not just made up by me. This is research backed, and the USDA also has these guidelines too of saying like, the manufacturers are the ones who put the labels on, not the government has no say in what dates go on to each item. It's all the manufacturers who choose the dates that they put on there. So think about if you were a big manufacturer like Kraft, you would want your products to go through the shelves pretty quickly, right? So you might put a date that doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, so that the grocery store then needs to purchase more items. So just know that these dates are put on by the manufacturers, and that most of your food is good longer than the date on here. And then my last thing is, because I am working for the food bank, if you are in need of food assistance, we have a bunch of resources available to you. So we have an online website where you can put in your zip code and find different programs and resources near you. We have a phone number you can call, 202-644-9807, and you can talk to somebody and find food resources near you. And we also have an email address as well. So all of these, we have a wonderful person who will help you if you call or email, or you can do your own looking online. So please feel free to utilize this resource. And then I don't know if we have, oh, thank you for putting that in there.
No problem, Eliza. This session is actually recorded, so all of the charts will actually be posted on our YouTube channel, so folks can review the charts or information that was there as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we are over time. I don't know, do we have time for questions or?
Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you. I was really impressed, and I learned quite a bit listening to your session today. You know, we had Michelle from Capital Area Food Bank a bit ago, so we learned a little bit the Hunger Lifeline and some of the food assistance programs. That number is very useful as well. So I'm glad that you mentioned it, and that tracker right there was also quite interesting. and useful as well. So please take advantage of the Lifeline. I think I remember, you know, it's not just for food. You can also call about other things with that Lifeline as well. So they are pretty useful in getting assistance for a lot of different things, but mostly for food, but also other things as well, right?
Yes, yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. Does anybody have any questions or questions for Eliza before we end for today? Again, we'll be having a poll at the end, so please make sure you stay on for the poll. So I see we have two hands. So yeah, just try to make sure you keep them as brief as we can so we can make sure we get through everyone's questions. We have Miss Morgan, Mr. Stephen, and Miss Rosemary for today. Let's see, Miss Rosemary, you had a question?
Hi, thank you, Elijah and Alex for the presentation today. On the helpline, whatever services they provide besides food services.
So they can help you find other organizations that can assist with various things. So I know we have other organizations we work with that help with rental assistance or health insurance or mental health services. So there are some other resources they're able to help with.
Okay, I will direct my family members there. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Miss Rosemary. Appreciate that so much.
Thank you.
Miss Morgan, did you have a question for Eliza about anything she went over today? Again, Miss Morgan, you can unmute in the middle if you have a question. I'll be able to see if you unmute. Mr. Stephen, you had a question for Eliza about anything she went over today?
Thank you very, very much. I just have a question about fresh versus frozen food, produce. So at one time I had heard that frozen was nutritionally better than fresh in a supermarket. So what's your viewpoint? That's the best way to ask that.
Thank you. Yeah, so when they freeze produce, they usually freeze it when it's in season. So that means it does have all of its nutrients. So think about a frozen strawberry. You can tell, or a fresh strawberry, you can tell when it's in season and not. They have such different flavors. So when they're frozen, they're usually frozen when they're in season at their highest peak. So they have a lot of nutrients. I will say it's not always the case, and the amount of difference in the nutrients isn't enough to ever say, you know, make sure you get one or make sure you get another. My advice is always, as long as you're eating your fruits and vegetables, like 1 cup of fresh or 1 cup of frozen, you're getting pretty much the same. If they're slightly different, it's not worth the troubles. I hope that answers the question.
No, thank you. Thank you very
much. Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stephen. Have a good rest of your day. I know we said 3 hands. We didn't get a chance to hear from Miss Morgan. Really quick, Anne, you have a question or a comment for Eliza?
I just have a comment that a lot of us are gardening, and so a lot of times I freeze some of the stuff that I've gardened, and I have my aides pick them, and I do share. And I found out that you can freeze apples and oranges and pears and peaches. I make cakes, and so I use some fruit in them, and you can use that in that, and you can the peaches and the pears and the apples do really good in pies. So that's another thing. And I wanted to tell you that there's a seasoning section that has a lot of seasonings at the Safeway on, I don't know if they have them at all places, but I know at the Safeway at 14th Street Southeast has a section of low salt seasonings or no salt seasonings.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you so much for sharing.
And you can also freeze like garlic and things that you're going to use in cooking, like
Mm-hmm.
parsley and that kind of stuff. You can dry that and freeze it, or you can dry it and keep it.
Yeah, those are really great suggestions for everyone too. Thank you.
But that's for us people who are on low budgets and things go bad real quick on us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Anne, for sharing. We really appreciate that.
Yes. And unfortunately, I do have to hop off at 2:45. So I think that was our last question.
Ye- Yes. Oh, thank you so much, Eliza. We really appreciate you coming on to today. Any quick closing remarks? Anything you would like to highlight today before we end?
No, just keep it. Sounds like a lot of you are doing wonderful cooking and yummy foods. So keep it up. And if you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out.
Well, thank you so much, Eliza. Let's all thank Eliza for coming on to today's session, and make sure you stay
Thank
on to
you.
the poll.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so much,
Elijah.
Eliza.
Thank you.
Elijah.
The rest of your day.
Thank you,
Thank
Eliza.
you. It was great.
Oh, it
Thank
was
you.
a refresher.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much,
Very nice.
everyone.
Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much.